I was almost to the point of tears because that's just how horrible I felt. I'm like, "Why? I shouldn't even have started. This is stupid." Josh, you got like, man, you're the you rent. Why don't you just let the landlord do it? Now you're going to be screwed without water. What if something breaks? What are you going to do then? And all these things are flooded in my head. And I mean, I'm just 10 shades of overwhelmed. And, I was just like, oh my gosh. Welcome back to another episode of Life, Recovery, and the Pursuit of Sanity. My name is Josh Logan, and before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, click the subscribe button, and turn on the bell notification so you don't miss another episode of Life, Recovery, and the Pursuit of Sanity. Today's episode, I want to discuss what to do when things don't seem to be going correctly. What story do you tell yourself? What is it that goes inside of your head when things are not working out the way that you think that they should be working out? And so to kick this off, I want to tell you a story. I love telling stories. I think it really kind of brings it all together. And not to mention, it allows me to be vulnerable, which is very good, so that you can relate to me, and maybe you don't relate to me. I don't really care. But I still want you to hit that like button. So yesterday, or actually it wasn't yesterday, the day before, I decided that I needed to change the cartridge in my shower faucet. It had started leaking about a week ago, and we're talking, this wasn't just a little drip. This was a steady stream coming out of the faucet, so much that I started to put a bucket underneath the faucet to catch the water that was coming down, and that's what we were using to try to flush the stool, to try to offset the fact that it was leaking so much, and it filled up. I mean, it was well over a gallon every couple hours, and in my mind, we do rent, and I weighed the difference between how long it would take for them to come, how much water would end up being wasted, and how much I would spend on either one. Do I spend $20 on a cartridge and fix it myself, or do I wait for the landlord to send somebody? And I didn't know. Who knows? It could have already been done by the landlord yesterday, or it could be a couple weeks from now. You just never know when you rent. So I made the decision that I'm going to fix this. I'm relatively mechanically inclined, so I can do stuff like that when I need to. So I got on YouTube, looked at some videos, and I thought, wow, this is a lot easier than I thought. And then I even contacted one of my good friends and asked him if he had any advice. And so I get the tub faucet pulled apart, and I realized that I ain't getting this cartridge out on my own. It just wasn't coming. So let me back up a little bit. Sunday night, Monday morning, it rained like crazy here in Springfield. It was out of control, flooding, and our water main there's one under the house, and I didn't want to crawl under the house, but then there's the main shutoff from the city that's out in the yard. And so I thought, I'm just going to go out there because I don't want to crawl under the house and get all muddy and nasty, and I didn't even know where it was underneath the house either, and who knows, maybe there isn't a shutoff valve under the house. I just didn't want to find out, but I knew that it was out there, so I went out there, and it's like, it's deeper than that. It was probably 2 foot deep, and it's filled with water, completely filled with water. And it's about 40 degrees outside, so it was kind of cold. So I was like, what do I do? I tried sticking my hand all the way down, And I was like, man, this is way too deep. My hand will be freezing by the time I can find out where the valve is. And so I decided that I was going to scoop the water out. So I had this bowl and I'm scooping the water out, throwing it as far as I could. I finally got it down to a point where I could shut it off. This is about 4 o'clock. So I finally get it shut off. So mind you, there's no water in the house at all. And so then I start trying to pull it apart, and I realize I can't pull it out. So I call up my friend Brett, and I said, "Hey man, that tool that you'd mentioned, can I get that?" And he was like, "Oh, let me find it." And he found it, and so we met, and I got it from him. And so I take it home, and I start using it, and it's basically you latch on to the little screw thing, and it you just start turning this thing, and it kind of like presses up against the pipe, then pulls the cartridge out. Well, I got it to the point where it wasn't going any further out. It would come out. So now I'm in. There's no way I can turn the water back on. I'm in it. I got to finish this now, or I'm screwed. So I kept trying. And I could not get this thing out. I texted my friend, and I was kind of vulgar, but I'm like, "It's not coming out. I don't know what to do." And he was like, "Calm down. I'll be there after I get off work." So the point of this story is the stuff that was going on inside of my head. I felt like a failure. I felt like I had screwed up big time. I mean, I was like almost to the, and this seems simple, but I was almost to the point of tears because that's just how horrible I felt. I'm like, what? I shouldn't even have started. This is stupid. Josh, you got, like, man, you're, you rent. Why don't you just let the landlord do it? Now you're going to be screwed without water. What if something breaks? What are you going to do then? And all these things are flooded in my head. And I mean, I'm just 10 shades of overwhelmed. And, I was just like, oh my gosh. And I slowly started to kind of tell myself, okay, no, just calm down. Brett will come. And so, lo and behold, Brett came over. And of course, the tool, I'd done what I needed to do with the tool. But at that point, I was just so scared that I was going to break something and I was going to have a bigger problem than just that stupid cartridge. So he comes over and he gets the cartridge out. And I swear, I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I mean, I was so relieved. I was so overwhelmed that, he was able to do this. And I knew that he could, but I just had a breakdown before that. So I, go to the Lowe's, grab the cartridge, the new one, get it in, get it all back together, turn on the water, and it works. But the big thing was I had to go get the cartridge, and I'd take my son to, he had a chamber choir practice. And so after I dropped him off, in my head, I was finally starting to gather some decent thoughts, some thoughts that weren't so negative. And I really, at that point, I realized, that the power of positive self-talk is very, very good. Being patient is very, very good. Telling yourself that it's going to be okay, even if it's not. Just allowing yourself just the opportunity to not have a breakdown, because ultimately there was nothing that I could have done at that point. I was in it. So having a mental breakdown and beating myself up was not going to change anything. It wasn't. And that was a real big eye-opener for me. And the idea that I was even willing to attempt something that I was not familiar with is big, because that's what a lot of times what stops us from trying new things is we're afraid of failure. And I put myself out there to fail, not knowing that it was going to be such a pain in the butt. But now, not looking back on it, I'm like, it wasn't as big of a deal. I was so scared of breaking something that I just I froze. So I started to do something that I didn't know what I was doing, and then ended up stopping before I had the victory. And thank God for Brett. That guy is an amazing friend. Probably one of the longest standing friends in my recovery. Ironically enough, he's in recovery too. And we don't always talk all the time, but we are very good friends, and I admire him a lot. But what happens in your life when something doesn't seem to go the right way? Do you have a breakdown? And this is an honest question. This isn't something that I don't, your arrogance doesn't get you anywhere. And this is where a lot of people, they will become arrogant, and they won't admit that they have stuff like that going on inside their heads. This isn't for you people, because obviously that's another set of problems. We're not all perfect. We're not all amazing. We're not all able to just work through things and don't have any emotional problems. This is for the people that do have the craziness that goes on inside of your head. Because I know I still do. I'm over 6 years clean. Actually, it'll be 7 years in July. And I still have a lot of crazy stuff that goes on inside my head. And I don't ever want anybody to think that I have it all figured out, that in my recovery, everything goes great and I never have any emotional breakdowns. I never have things where I stick my foot in my mouth. I never do anything that I regret, because I do all the time. The key is to recognize, all right, I messed up. What am I going to do differently, knowing my part in the whole thing, and then making the corrective measures, asking for help, talking to people about it, and accepting that help, and accepting that, okay, I have come a long way, but I still have more work to do. And that's okay. That's a good thing. But we got to remember of how far you have come. We have all worked through stuff, and we are either better off than we were before, or we're worse off because we continue to make stupid decisions. I appreciate you watching this video. Again, give it a like, click that subscribe button, and share this video so that other people can get a message of hope, that they can know that they are not alone in this thing called life. It's crazy out there. I appreciate everybody. Thank you. Till next time.